The financial system is under attack. The cracks are beginning to show as banks are being bailed out and hard-working people yet again are left to pick up the pieces. This is unacceptable. We were told that after the 2008 financial crash that measures were put in place so that this could not happen again. Personally, I don't want to risk my family's financial future to find out if that's true or not. Are you prepared? Do you have a plan? Can you weather the storm with confidence? Don't be at the back of the line. Act now. Visit goldbusters.co.uk and protect your family today.
Welcome back, Adam and James. Good to see you.
Hi, Charlie. Good to see you. How you doing?
Yeah, good. We're hearing a lot more now in the mainstream about gold-backed currency, asset-backed currency. It's coming out of countries like Zimbabwe. It's coming out of countries that are talking about asset-backed and gold-backed currencies. So what we've been saying for the past 2 years is now coming to fruition. And it's very interesting. I think this is very interesting because we've become the conduit, if you like, for truth. Because if you look at mainstream media, you'd have to agree that the top two financial papers are the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal when it comes to finance.
Yeah.
None of which are talking about this asset-backed currency that's coming in. So that must raise huge alarm bells for anybody who has heard what we're saying. And they know something's happening. And I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday who said, I can't tell you the bank and I can't tell you the bank manager's name because he'll kill me. But he sent over a 16-page document about the new quantum financial system and the asset-backed currency to him. But he said, keep this to yourself. You're not allowed to talk about it. Now, if you look in and use a little bit of common sense, just a little bit, what the three of us are is God's children, if you like. We've been created here, and we actually voted for a government to look after us, to do things that would be in our interest, to protect us. And they haven't done that for the past 25 years, and maybe an awful lot longer, maybe 50, maybe 100 years, maybe even more. And right now, they're doing exactly the opposite of what they should be doing. And the fact is that they were trying to enslave us into a financial system that gave them total control. And if it wasn't for people like me and many, many good people that are working alongside the truth movement and the people behind the scenes that we tend to call the white hats, who've actually attempted to wrestle this away, we would have been enslaved. And there's plenty of people out there right now who are in their happy bubble, not doing anything. You'll wake up in a hurry when you go to the cash machine, you can't get anything out. And you'll be very thankful that somebody's been fighting on your behalf.
It's easy to go along with it, though, isn't it, Charlie? It's difficult to go against the grain and to speak out. It's not easy.
It's not. It's easier for me because I don't work for anybody, so they can't sack me.
And you get momentum with it, I think, as well.
You get momentum with it, and we've just got more momentum from when we've been traveling in Texas, speaking to people there. It's very uplifting to see thousands of people who are supporting the work that you do and the work that we're all doing. But what we're trying to do today is share our experiences on how that we've actually, with our financial position, made not just ourselves, but our families secure and not beholden to the banking cabal, the banking system. This is not what they want. This is what I want, what Adam wants, and what James wants.
Mm.
And we're here to show you what we're doing in protecting your wealth from people stealing it.
Mm.
You might not appreciate it today, but you will appreciate it in the future. So what are we going to talk about today, guys?
Well, today we're taking a bit of a zoomed out approach and just looking at what's going on in the world, hopefully decoding it in a way that makes sense to everyday hardworking people. Because we've always said, Charlie, and I know you've always said the same, we're just simple people. We're just, we don't, if things are complicated, then it's difficult to take action. We don't always understand it. We just want things to be simple. And I think most people, if they're going to take action, they need it in a simple form. And what the media does is makes things very complicated so that you don't always know exactly what's happening. Also, we want to piece together a few things that are lining up and just to give people our view on what's happening. So do you want to give us a quick disclaimer, James, as you always do?
Yeah, I'm the disclaimer guy, aren't I? Yeah, anybody watching this, especially for those who are watching us for the first time, this isn't financial advice. It never will be. We don't believe in financial advice to begin with. We never have. I learned the hard way. I used to give people advice when I was in the army. It doesn't work. It doesn't empower people. So all we do is share information with you, which has got us to a better place financially, and made us independent, financially independent. So we don't have to rely on the system or governments or whatever else, as much as we can be anyway. So all we're doing is sharing that information with you, and that's all we ever do. And that's what we do for all our customers too. We never tell them what to do or advise them. We always empower them with information and knowledge, and we help them take action, but we'll never tell them what to do or advise. So I think that's the nail hit on the head.
Yeah, you've covered it. So today we want to talk about something called the death of the dollar. And as we've said many times, we never look at one piece of information and then run a mile with it. It's always about spotting trends and stacking probabilities in our favor. There's a really, really interesting YouTube animation done by a guy called Ray Dalio, who is the CEO and founder of the biggest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater Associates, called The Changing World Order. And I would recommend anyone go and watch that because he does an amazing job laying out what's happening in the world. The premise is this. Ray looked at events that were happening in his lifetime, and they surprised him because they'd never happened before in his lifetime. So what he did is he looked back through history before he was born, and looked at what had happened throughout time, and he saw that there were patterns, and the same things actually happened over and over again. From that, he saw that there was the rise and decline of different empires over time, and they all followed a similar pattern. And you can see here just over, I think he looked at roughly around 500 years of history, and saw that the Dutch Empire had the rise, the top, and then the decline. And in the decline, it was then challenged by another power, another empire, which was the British Empire, that had the rise, the top, and the decline. That was then challenged by the US, that had the rise, the top, and that brings us to kind of current day. And all of these empires, they were analyzed through certain indicators, almost like looking at your health. So saying, look, by looking at your weight, what you eat, your vital signs,
lifestyle,
your lifestyle, you can have a decent idea of how long someone's going to live. It's not exact, it's not a perfect science, and there's obviously going to be some error in that judgment, but you get a good idea. Well, what Ray did is he looked at economies with the same view, and they all followed a very similar pattern, which is not surprising, really. Human nature doesn't change too much over time. So what that brings us to is the US is actually on the decline. Now, the US is the dominant power around the world. With that, it has the world's reserve currency, the US dollar. 70% of world transactions are done with the US dollar. And this was the same with the Dutch guilder and the British pound. And there was a shift. The pound declined, then the US dollar took over. The interesting thing now, when you look at the US, is it is hitting all of those points. And essentially, if you look at this this curve of the rise, the top, and then the decline, the US is in stage 5 of 6. This is the vital signs that it's projecting. Huge debt, that there's internal and external conflict, and they're really at a point now where they've got so much momentum down the hill, it's inevitable. It would be very, very unlikely that this would turn around. If they were near the top, possibly, there's a chance. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the world reserve currency, the US dollar, is also on the decline and under attack as well. And if you think, well, yeah, that's just the US. Remember, 70% of world transactions are done in the US dollar. This is going to have ripple effects around the world. It's going to affect everybody. Just going back to here, as you can see, when there's a crossover between these empires, this is rarely done peacefully. There is usually, when you look back through history, physical conflict. Whether that will happen in the future and it will be exactly the same, or it'll be more of a digital war, a trade war, we don't know exactly. But the current dominant power rarely gives up its position without a fight. There's a lot of powerful people that are wanting to remain in power. And with the US dollar being the dominant power, having the world reserve currency, if 70% of the world's transactions are done within that currency, they're pulling the strings and they are dictating what's happening. So you might think,
we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen it happen. So yeah,
you can see it happening. So this is one thing. This is zoomed out. Each one of these phases, are they equal in time? Probably not. Is it going to be, can we say the exact date when this is going to happen? No, but it's always good to know the position that we are in collectively, as you know, it's going to affect everyone in the world, and just be aware so that you can prepare yourself. So this is the first thing that for us, I guess, motivates us to say, there's something going on here. We need to look into this further. That's one piece of information. The second piece of information that that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about is the US debt ceiling. And what this says is that the US, its economy and the US dollar, that's all kind of bound together, there's fragility. It's vulnerable. Now, whether the US debt ceiling, as we've said before, whether it's raised or whether it's not raised, we're not here to predict that or say whether it's good or bad. But the fact that it's coming into question is the problem. So you've got the world reserve currency. It's affecting everyone. It's meant to be this big global superpower, yet they are going into more debt and questioning whether they should go into more debt. Janet Yellen, who has worked for the Federal Reserve, now works for the Treasury, said that the US could run out of cash by the 1st of June 2023. Yeah, it's that real and that current. So it's a big issue. I have a feeling that they will raise the debt ceiling because the alternative is that the US defaults on its debts, and I think that has a much bigger issue. But raising the debt ceiling just kicks things down the road. It doesn't solve any problems because the debt ceiling that needs to be raised is all about previous commitments. It's not about future commitments. It's things that have already been promised. Imagine that if you ran your household in the same way. You made these promises, you didn't have the money, and then you had to go and raise more debt to fulfill your promises. Just a bit of it wouldn't be sustainable as households. So again, it's another piece of the puzzle that says, this is an issue. And we're starting to build up a bit of a trend and a pattern to where the world's going. The next thing that I find really interesting, and me and James were geeking out over this, really, we were getting very excited, to put it politely, is the BRICS countries. And I think this is very underreported in most medias around the world. So this is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they've grouped together to call the BRICS countries. And their sole purpose is to trade in non-US dollar currencies.
Mhm.
And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to move away from the US dollar. On the 25th of April 2023, it was announced that 19 additional countries have expressed interest in joining these BRICS countries, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, Mexico. And it's very, very interesting, this shift away from US dollars. They're trying to distance themselves because they can see what's happening. The US dollar is in trouble. So these are big economies as well, huge populations, big shifts. And whereas the West typically has been very dominant, it's getting to the point now that the growth in the West is slowing down. And these countries, the BRICS countries, are seeing massive amounts of growth and ones to watch. For the first time ever, the BRICS countries, their share of global GDP surpassed that of the G7 countries. So the G7 being Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and US. And this is a big move. So the BRICS countries contribute 31.5% of global GDP, G7 fallen to 30%. And it's expected that by 2030, the BRICS countries will contribute over 50% of the world's GDP.
Well, I can update you on that. The countries that have joined BRICS, you're absolutely right. There's 19. There's even more than that now. That actually takes it to 77%.
Wow! Wow!
There you go.
And I've got a list of all of the countries that have joined, and the ones that have applied. The ones that have applied to join have already been accepted. And there is over 20 now, well over 20 other major countries.
Yeah.
Egypt obviously was an early one. Afghanistan is massive. Algeria, Argentina, Iran is huge. Saudi Arabia is huge because Saudi Arabia was pegged to the dollar for the petrol.
Exactly.
Kazakhstan, huge economy. Nicaragua, Zimbabwe, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Iraq, Cambodia, Senegal, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates. The United Kingdom has has already joined BRICS behind the scenes.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
And they're actually going to use sterling silver as the asset to back their currency. Costa Rica, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, Bolivia, Chile, Cuba, Ecuador, Peru, Uruguay, Venezuela, Azerbaijan. These next countries, people have underestimated them. Azerbaijan, Mongolia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. These are huge countries. Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Turkey. I mean, Turkey I know this because of my wife. People forget how big Istanbul is, one of the largest cities in the world. If you take China out of the equation, largest city in the world would be Istanbul. Germany have been accepted into BRICS, which then basically waves goodbye to the EU or to the European Union. So they're currently up over 77%.
Wow.
It's a huge shift. Huge shift.
I thought you were being very generous in the first picture of the US coming down and the China going up, because they've actually passed already.
Sure.
And that was a very generous picture showing that the US is on the way down. It's past the point of no return.
That's what's really interesting to know what you'd have to say, Charlie. Because we know that you'd know. I think that we thought that you'd know a little bit more.
But this is the beauty of what we're doing. We're not controlled by the deep state. We're out there finding out information, and by coming together. I can't do this by myself, and I'm very, very grateful for everybody else that's doing the legwork. There are, as General Flynn was saying the other day, there are so many good digital warriors out there. None of us have got all the answers. None of us. But what we're doing is putting pieces of the puzzle together to establish something, because mainstream media is not.
And as we always say, go and do your own research. We're just saying this is our conclusion from the information we've seen. We're connecting the dots, and we're seeing a general trend away from the US dollar. I think one thing we took note as well that you said, Charlie, is I think people underestimate the fact of Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Because when you look back through history, the US and Saudi Arabia have such a close connection. Yeah. Essentially, what the US said is, look, you sell oil, and Saudi Arabia is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, oil producer in the world. Yeah. And the US said to Saudi Arabia, look, you only sell oil in US dollars, and we'll basically protect you, look after you, make sure that you're not bothered. Okay. Yeah. On the global stage. You never used to hear much about Saudi Arabia. So what that meant is the US are pulling all the strings on the US dollar, and people needed US dollars. They relied on the US because they wanted those US dollars to buy the oil. And it meant that everyone had to toe the line. And if they didn't do what the US said, then the US can cut them off from US dollars, cut them off from the SWIFT system, and do all these things that we've seen them do to Russia and other countries. The fact that Saudi Arabia are joining BRICS, there was an article saying that, and again, you have to search for this stuff. It's not like the front page of the BBC, for example. Saudi Arabia are open to selling oil in non-US currencies, non-US dollar currencies. And that's huge, because for them to be part of BRICS, they have to be open to it, because that's the whole point of the group. And I think equally, the fact of the US sanctioning Russia and saying basically you can't play anymore, you can't use US dollars, you can't be part of the SWIFT system, that's only accelerated this group. It's accelerated the move again away from US dollars. So I don't think the US have tried to be the big bully in the playground, and what they've done is they've just pushed another group together even quicker than before. Yeah. These countries have their own bank as well. It's almost like their own central bank, and big players, absolutely big players in the world. And clearly, it's very attractive to other countries. They're clearly wanting to join and wanting to be part of this. And I think they've seen how the US has switched countries off from the SWIFT system and said, we don't want to be vulnerable to that. Yeah. Let's join this group. A big shift. It's really, really big. And we don't hear about it. But throughout all of this, through the US being in decline, struggling with their debt ceiling, and another group forming to move away from that, it's all pulling in the same direction. Yeah. And that is that the US and the US dollar is under attack, and it opens the door for China.
Of course it does.
No question.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the tendency, we think there is one simple solution to this. First of all, people are trying to ditch the dollar, and we think that people should do that too. Watch. Don't listen to what you're told to do. Look what countries are actually doing themselves. Central banks are doing for themselves, because they tell you one thing and then they do another. Yeah. The big changes are, and the tendency, I think, is for people to say, okay, so China's going to be the new power, or the challenging power, as we're seeing now. Well, what do I do? How do I benefit from this? How do I protect myself? Is it, do I have Chinese currency or Chinese investments, or what do I do? We just think you don't need to pick a side. You don't need to play that game. You can actually take yourself out. The way we do that is we buy metals, and we just live to fight another day. We let this thing play out, knowing that we're protected. And we've seen this throughout history. There's been over 750 currencies ever created, ever used around the world. Only about 20% of them are still in existence. And every time there's been a revaluation of currency, people have lost a lot of value. You can see it with the German Deutschmark. If you had German Deutschmarks and then euros, you lost a lot of value. If those people had German Deutschmarks, bought gold, let the revaluation change, Deutschmarks turned to euros, and then got that gold and then sold it into euros, they would have been protected.
Yeah.
They've been far better off. We've done the research on this and done the numbers on this to check it all out and make sure we're not talking rubbish. And it was very interesting. It was, would have made a massive difference.
You can see how people use gold to protect themselves and just take themselves out of that situation, out of that picking of sides, because who knows what's going to happen? Who knows exactly how it's going to play out? Well, you don't have to. That's the good news. You can take yourself out, know that you're protected. Just on a little side note, in 2022, central banks purchased the highest amount of gold that they've ever purchased.
Yeah.
Maybe that tells you something.
Since records began, wasn't it? Was it 1950
records began?
Something?
And in 2023, they are buying gold at the fastest rate on record. Obviously, the year hasn't ended, but the pace that they are buying is the fastest pace on record as well.
Yeah.
So they know what's happening. They can see the big picture, and hopefully we can give you some insight into how we're seeing things, and that you can put it into action and actually protect yourself and look after yourself and your family. You know, US citizens aren't going to be the only ones that are vulnerable to this and affected. We think the US is going to be affected and the people there, but it's going to be everybody.
It affects us all, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. We just want to be independent of the outcome. That's
so a lot of this information we talk about, sometimes people might watch it. Well, I know, so I speak to people and they say, well, yeah, but how does that affect me and my family personally? So this is us bringing it down to a personal level, to just you and your family. Look, that's what's going on in the world. You and your family can do something about it, and please do. Look, that's what the bankers are doing. That's what they're doing. They know what's going on. Just do the same. Keep it simple. Do the same. You know, it's not complicated. It really isn't.
It's not at all. We just need to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
This is what we're trying to do for people, is make them aware. There's a lot of people who just seem to not care. But you and I both know, or all three of us know, that prevention is so much easier than cure.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Charlie, these things have happened before, so it's not
time and time again. Yeah.
The guesswork is in the time frame, which you don't have to know, but the events and how they play out, it has happened before. So we just want to say, look, this is the point that this is how we see things happening because of history. This is the point we see the world at the minute, and here's what you can do about it if you want to protect yourself and your family.
Yeah. Just one more on that. I think it's been designed that way, though, hasn't it? People have been. It's been ingrained into people that they're too small, that they can't do anything. You know, they have no power. So this is us just trying to give you the power back, and trying to empower the average normal, hard-working families. Just trying to give them that power back, encourage them to do something for themselves. They can do something. And if we all do that little bit of something for ourselves and work together, then guess where we can be? We can, there's no limit.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That's so important. And if you look at my journey from 3 years ago to where we've come today, that's living proof to everybody that's watching that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah.